This is an exciting show because you're going to hear a story, a true story of one of my clients who got her life back. So if you're someone seeking your health, like I was at one point, right? Like so many watching this, hormone imbalance. I mean, I can go down a long list of symptoms, gut issues, food intolerances, brain fog. I mean, unbelievable recovery. You have to hear this story. Autoimmune of all types. I don't remember how many autoimmune, several. She had done everything from the Mayo Clinic, saw everybody, and wait to hear the hidden causes that we found upstream. And the reason I'm excited for you to watch the show is because there are some amazing surprises, and there's a big one at the end, and it's a good one. So this show is going to give you a lot of hope, and this is going to be a show that you're going to want to share. So wait to hear this life journey. I want to give thanks to one of our sponsors, CytoDefend. Look, at a time like this, I think that our immune system and keeping our immune system up right now is more important than ever. I can also tell you that I pay attention to the things that keep my immune system on par and healthy. So glad that CytoDefend is one of our sponsors here on Cell TV, and it's a product that I use, my family uses, and hopefully you'll check it out. And by the way, you can check it out with the link right here below. If you want to try a free bottle, you can actually get a free bottle, just pay the shipping. And I think you'll reorder after that, but check it out.
If you're listening to this podcast and want to access the amazing CytoDefend product Dr. Pompa just mentioned, please visit freeimmunity.com. Again, that's freeimmunity.com. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cellular Healing TV. I'm Ashley Smith, and today we welcome a very special guest. Her name is Tamara Jarrett, and Tamara is a client and success story of Dr. Pompa's, who utilized his multi-therapeutic approaches to gain back her health. Tamara made discoveries about her upstream sources of toxicity in her body that changed everything for her, and it made real health a priority in her life. Tamara is now living a joyful life, inspiring others to find true health, and she's here to share her story with you all today. So let's welcome Dr. Pompa, of course, and Tamara Jarrett. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Tamara, I have been looking forward to this show because there is so many lessons in this show, because you were the same person that watches Cell TV, listens to other podcasts and, Cell TV, seeking your health back. I mean, that was you. Right? I mean, that was, in fact, how we found you. Is that correct? You ended up a client of mine.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Yep. So let's go back, because you said something right before the interview. I forget half of the things that I had going on, right? And I was like, okay, good, because I went back and had to remind myself to the first day of when we had a consult. And by the way, I'm virtual, so all my clients are from all over the place, and I coach it virtually. And so we did the first consult over the phone, right? And so I went back and read my notes, and even I was like, oh my gosh, that's right, I forgot all this. So anyway, I'm just going to remind you that you can fill in the gaps, right? Okay, so you came to me with a major complaint of major hormone imbalance was one of the topics that you put in, and you had no period at that time for over 2 years, almost 3 years. Matter of fact, you were on bioidentical hormones at this point for 3 months, you had said. You were playing the hormone game, trying to find some balance. I don't recall how that was working at the time, but you realized it wasn't a long-term win. You had on your blood work, you had an increase in thyroid antibodies. So your hair was thinning, falling out, your hands were cold. I mean, all the typical thyroid symptoms. You had migraines and dizziness. I think that was one of the big concerns for you at that point. But your gut issues, I believe you had been battling for a long time, doing a lot of things. You had a positive autoimmune diagnosis of your gut. You had infections on many different tests. You were diagnosed with lesions in your bile, food intolerance test, reflux. Gastroparesis was another diagnosis, meaning your food just lays there and doesn't move. You had body aches, you had muscle weakness, numbness, tremors in your hands, brain fog, poor memory. Did I miss anything?
Oh, you said vision, right? I had some vision changes.
I missed that. You had vision changes. You did.
Yes, some vision changes. Eczema. I had eczema. It's one thing. But no, I think you nailed. I think you nailed
Okay,
it.
so I mean, before you got to me, you were the type of person. The reason I decided to work with you because I choose specific, obviously cases. I don't have to work with everybody, but I also choose specific people, meaning that I could tell someone who's just willing to do whatever it takes, and I could tell, and I take someone through an interview process, and I could tell you were that person. You had already done just about everything. You had made every dietary change you had done. So share with where you were coming to me. Like, how did you get there?
Yeah, so I think me just like everybody else in this world, we kind of go. You get sick, you don't feel good, you go to the doctor, and so I went to the doctor. Well, and to back up, I had now looking, I can go upstream later, but at the time where kind of the floor fell out for me, I had taken an antibiotic to treat something called SIBO, so small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. I was 3 months postpartum with my second baby, and took the antibiotic, and all of a sudden just this, to treat something that was more localized to my stomach. So I thought, and all these symptoms kind of started coming out, just daily, a new symptom would start. And of those, that long, lengthy list that you just listed, kind of started spiraling out of control. And so then I would start to, go to a doctor. This doctor would refer me to another doctor, and that doctor would refer me to another doctor. And all these diagnoses started coming out, but nobody was going to, kind of uncover what happened and why all those things started coming out. And so, you get frustrated because they just want to give you this medication, and you try them and you don't really feel a whole lot better. And so then, I kind of started thinking, okay, how do I get to the bottom of this? And so then I thought, okay, let's try naturopathic medicine. And by this point I had been literally, Mayo Clinic, I'd been all over my state, different doctors. And they had wanted to put a PICC line in me. I forgot, this is one more thing, weight loss, extreme weight loss.
Oh yeah, you weighed, when you came in, you were about 110 pounds at 5'8".
5'8", yeah. So I lost, and that was after a baby, 3 months after, 3-4 months after a baby. So I just started losing, a lot of weight. And so the doctors, they wanted to put a PICC line in so I could get some nutrition. And I just thought there's got to be more to this. I was quote unquote okay, a month ago. And then, I took this antibiotic, and then all this started happening. So started going into kind of natural medicine. And, even with the natural side of things, I felt like a lot of them understood a lot more on how to not just symptom treat, but how to try to get, a little bit more upstream, but nobody really got the big picture. And so it was just kind of a consistent, research and trying to figure out how to, make myself feel better, because I was pretty miserable. And I stumbled upon your podcast and kind of, reading some articles and stuff. And I'm like, wow, for the first time, and at this point, it'd probably been close to a year into that journey. And for the first time, I felt like somebody understands every aspect of what I am going through and how I feel, and how to get upstream and address, the cause. And if you address the cause, you remove the source, then your body is, the innate intelligence of your body will be, will take care of the rest.
Well, so, we've had a lot of success stories on Cell TV about this, and it's always that, right? It's like, look, they had been to the best. They had been here, alternative, allopathic, and no one really asked the same questions you asked me, going upstream to the cause. And what we mean by that, because I've had people ask me that, is that if you think of a river, there's some toxin or some stressor upstream poisoning, and all the fish are dying downstream. And we're downstream trying to put new fish in and, get the algae blooms to be successful again, and the microorganisms. But the problem is 20 miles upstream, we have a factory dumping mercury in. So obviously I started asking a lot of those questions. But, I think some of your toxicity, talk a little bit about your childhood, because it never starts when we think, right? It didn't start with when you thought it started. So tell a little bit about that, because that was kind of some of the first stuff that we really uncovered.
No doubt. And so, obviously all of this really, I would say sped up after I took the antibiotic for the SIBO, but I had SIBO first, right? So, I mean, here's a sign that things were not right.
Right.
But I think a lot of people have little red flags, but they don't associate that until it's really, unbearable.
That was me. My bottom fell out, but looking back, I had little red flags along the way. Then the bottom fell out. So go ahead.
Yeah. So, I think we all have a bucket, and I think my bucket started filling when I was a child. I grew up, and, no offense to my family, but we grew up in a really rainy, moldy area. I remember constantly there being leaks in my house and my dad going and patching them up and fixing them and doing the best he could. But I would, you'd see mold in the, just different areas of the house and stuff. And so no doubt now looking back, that was an issue. And then my diet was definitely, pretty extreme as far as in the negative. It was lots of candy, lots of sugar, lots of pop, lots of, fast, easy, convenient food. I was always thin to begin with. And so I would eat it and think, I'm staying thin, I'm fine. There's no big deal. And that's kind of that mentality and mindset. But, you've told me multiple times sometimes the skinniest people are the most ill,
Yep.
So I, wholeheartedly believe that. I would say, took multiple rounds of antibiotics.
Mm-hmm.
I got real sick when I was, real young, pneumonia several times, but lots of antibiotics. That was definitely something that was kind of my area.
That set up your microbiome for, setting you up for the small intestinal bacteria overgrowth, meaning bacteria that shouldn't be in your small intestine or in your small intestine. It causes bloating, chronic reflux. I mean, a lot of the symptoms that you had, obviously.
Mm-hmm. So, and then I, like every 16, 17-year-old, you go and you get your wisdom teeth taken out. And then after that, I remember now kind of looking back, I developed my first 2 autoimmune diseases, kind of a bladder disease and then an eye disease as well. And so kind of, those were red flags once again, but I didn't associate that at the time. You just kind of symptom treat and get your way around them. And so then I go into dental hygiene, and I, was in the dental hygiene program. And so, you're sitting in lab with a ton of other students, and everybody's sitting there drilling out amalgam fillings because we have to practice all day long.
And amalgam fillings have 50% mercury, and you were in the lab working with it too, right?
Yeah. So, and you're a poor college student, so you don't wear gloves and you don't wear a mask, and you sit there and you drill it out and you drill it out, and you're inhaling all of those aerosols. And I mean, for years we would sit in lab and do one after another practicing. And then you go into private practice, and, the doctors, even though, I might not be directly placing it, or my office might not be placing it, they're still drilling them out. So that, that aerosol is still going. So, I'm 10 years in my career now. So I've been, in that environment for quite a while as well. I never had any amalgam fillings myself, but my mom did. And we know that,
So you got mercury there, and then obviously a lot of mercury. The dental field, statistically, health-wise, is the sickest profession. It leads women who work in the dental offices, number one infertility, hormone imbalance, right? Which you had all that. I mean, it's like after those babies, then you lost your period, you weren't able to have kids anymore. But we're going to see that dramatically all changes. But the bottom line is you were being exposed. So we knew your heavy metals were high. I mean, I think you had some other tests before you even got to me that signified you had high heavy metals when I read through my notes. But that was a big deal, and the mold exposures were a big deal. So when I looked at my notes before today, just reminding myself, I had question marks, like looks like biotoxins from mold. That's something we're going to have to deal with. Obviously the mercury we're going to have to deal with. You even had some potential lead exposures. You were in some houses that were remodeled, which give off a lot of lead. So, I mean, right there, you had some major metal exposures, mold, right? Okay, so we start into the detox, right? Kind of talk about that process as we go, because we had some other surprises, which we'll get to, but talk about that where we started.
So I would say one of my biggest stomach complaints was, and one of the things I loved that you say is, the perfect diet will not get you well, but you will not get well without the perfect diet. And so
Right.
I felt like pulling my hair out because I would try, everything under the sun. One thing would set well one day, the next day it would make me feel awful. Yeah. And, you can go through all sorts of things that way. And it just, there was no right.
You had major food intolerances. When you came to me, you were eating very well because you had to, right? But yet, okay, it helped this, but I'm sick, right? To your point, the perfect diet, won't get you well, but you won't get well without the perfect diet. So,
exactly. So I had bile reflux was one of my biggest things. So, and that was because my stomach was so slow to empty, the bile would reflux back up and cause this burning sensation. So early in the detox, we went through kind of opening up those pathways so I could, finally stuff would start to move and clear out of my system. And that definitely, I started noticing little differences with that. And then we slowly ramped up into, you kind of go through that prep phase to get your body ready to be able to detox, which mine was very clearly unable to in the beginning. And then the body phase where, you start to pull kind of, is that how you would explain, pull from kind of a little bit deeper tissue. And then the the brain phase is kind of where you get that mercury and you start going after it in your brain and pulling.
And that, that was, there were some breakthroughs, but then not, we were kind of back and forth. I mean, kind of describe that a little bit.
Yeah. So it's like I would get some relief and then I would, email you like, okay, this symptom, and it just kept kind of not, I mean, it from where I was, I still was gaining, I would say some ground, some significant ground. And I would feel a lot better, for a little while, but then I would just keep going backwards, or my SIBO would keep flaring up, or some of those nagging symptoms would just, I'd get like a little bit of relief and then it just would keep coming back. And so then that's where we both kind of started putting our heads together and we're like, okay, so usually in that case, you have not truly removed the source. Or one of the sources that's compromising your immune system.
To where you tell she watches a lot of my stuff to read, because that's exactly right. If someone's not breaking through like we expect, there's something else upstream. There's a causative factor we've forgotten about. So I looked back, and I even asked you this question before the show. What made us take so long before we did something called a cone beam, which shows hidden infections in the jaw? Because day one, I asked you about these hidden infections, right? I said you had wisdom teeth out, which is an indicator that you could have hidden infections, which create a lot of the gut problems that don't heal, et cetera, and autoimmune. And because you're in the dental field, you assured me I don't have any of those.
I said, I floss every day. I floss twice a day. I have no issues in my mouth. But I ended up watching an interview between you and Dr. Kiritola, a dentist out of New York, and the light bulb went off.
Episode 210, just so people need to watch it. Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay, cavitations, I get it. So, essentially it's where you take a tooth out and, they don't plug that with bone afterwards. And if your body doesn't, regenerate and fill in that socket with bone, then you have anaerobic bacteria that's going to start kind of hanging out down there. And those are the gnarlies that cause all sorts of problems. And then, the tissue kind of heals over that, and then it's out of sight, out of mind, but your body is fighting that, and that bacteria is able to go throughout the rest of your body. It's that hidden infection, right? So over the course of time, that is in direct, correlation with your bloodstream, and then you can start to have all sorts of issues from that. So
yeah, and then there's links obviously with hormone imbalance, cancer. I mean, autoimmune, obviously. And there was the movie Root Cause that got pulled off Netflix. It was a documentary based on all this, root canals and cavitations. These where wisdom teeth and other teeth are extracted, how they leave behind infections with no symptoms. There's no pain. You don't have pain or anything. No. Yeah, that's why you were insistent that this is good and my x-rays are good, this is good. Yeah. But you can't see these on a plain film, and they most often don't have symptoms. So therefore I said, okay, I started asking you more questions, and, you know, like I said, you saw the show. And so then we ended up saying, okay, we have to get a cone beam, which in fact showed that your two, I think it was your two lower ones, your two lower wisdom teeth, was it? Yeah. Both had cavitations. You had two major cavitations.
Yeah. So, and I could see them right away. Being in the dental field, I kind of know, once I knew what I was kind of looking for, I knew, oh, those are going to be an issue. And so I just sent him to Dr. Kiratola. He took a look at them, and we made a plan. And so pretty cool, really. And because I'm in that, I'm interested, you know. So he, you know, we went to New York, and he took care of him for me. And you know, I had him take pictures all along the way, so I could see what it looked like when he got in there. And they're just, you know, he flaps that tissue back, and there's big gaping holes really in your jaw. So pretty amazing. He said as he was cleaning those out, some black goop, for lack of a better term, I think is what he said, was just coming out of there. And, you know, I left his office afterwards, and, you know, I hadn't taken anything at that point, but broke out in hives on my side. So it just shows what kind of a bee's nest you're stirring up when you go in there. And
that's why we have a post protocol. Same thing happened to my wife after hers out. She had hives that broke out, showing those infections were just going. Look, we could have treated your gut from now on, you know, for the next whatever years, and you'd have still been up and down. We weren't going to fix it until we got, again, upstream cause, you know, what was being dumped in the river, so to speak. So there was other major symptom changes that happened. We broke through after the cavitation surgery, but there's one more thing that I blame myself on this one, right? It's like, so, but it's a good thing, because to this day, because of you, I ask this question all the time. And the doctors that I train, I said, always, always, always ask this question. Don't just expect them to write it in or et cetera. Yeah. It's breast implants. And now since your time, I've had other women who have had breast implants and issues and autoimmune, et cetera, and other problems come on, and we've done a show on it. And I think we have another one coming up. But talk about that, because we some amazing breakthroughs happened after you had breast implant surgery, or whatever you call it, extraction.
Yeah. So, you know, I think me, along with about probably a large percentage of women out there, you get them, and then, you know, you don't have symptoms or asymptomatic, and you just move on, and they're out of sight, out of mind, and you don't really think anything of it, especially when you start going through a health crisis 10 years later after getting them. And, you know, you just don't even correlate at all.
Of course not.
And so I had gotten those probably when I was in dental hygiene school. So just showing you how I was filling up my bucket nice and quickly. But so got those when we discussed it, finally got those removed. Like I said, no symptoms whatsoever, but I knew, you know, at that point, I'm like, oh, we for sure have to take these out. So searched high and low for the right doctor to be able to take care of not only, you know, removing them, but removing them correctly. So you get the entire capsule, because there's a scar tissue capsule that forms around those. And that's where a lot of that, you know, the toxic material will kind of hide in. And
we had an expert say just that, right? You have to get to that whole capsule. I believe, and you correct me if I'm wrong, they found a lot of things in there. They found obviously bad bacteria. I think they found mold in at least one of them. Am I right on that? Remember correctly?
Yep. You could visually see when I was holding it afterwards.
Wow.
The mold, you know, inside the implant, in the valve of the implant. And then, they found, so they test it 5 days. They test it for 2 weeks after the explant, the bacteria that they scoped in the capsule, and they were on day 5, the bacteria started growing. So a lot of doctors will test it right away, and then they'll say, oh, it's negative, no big deal. But mine started growing, you know, 5 days after, and that's when she was able to come, and she was, you know, she said this is associated a lot of times with those autoimmune shenanigans, is what she said.
Absolutely. Just like any upstream cause, right? You know, with each cause that we discovered and removed, you had different symptoms that went away. And with this one, you tell me when, but it was shortly after you got this done, boom, you got your period back. Was it the next month?
So I literally was waking up from anesthesia. And it was quite the long procedure, and was waking up from anesthesia, and all I could say to my husband was period cramps, over and over and over, and had my period that night. And I've been on cycle ever since. So
yeah, that's incredible. I've had that happen same with women walking out of the chair after cavitation. Mm-hmm. I had a woman find amalgam underneath a crown, and she got it out, and the next day she was bleeding. She had her period, which she hadn't had in like 6 years. That was actually someone who worked with me. I mean, that just shows you, folks, I hope you're hearing this. It's like when you go upstream, Tamara had been to the best, right? It's like, and she was taking a lot of things. She had changed her diet. She did everything that people will do to get their life back. But these hidden things were upstream. And I can tell you, it was just peeling back to these causative factors led to, where you actually are now. And matter of fact, let's tell them the next thing. So, okay, so, you end up getting the cavitations done. And I mean, that's a lot of your pain and weird things disappeared after that, correct?
Yeah, so actually the implants I got removed before the cavitations.
Yeah, exactly, yep.
And I had seen a significant improvement once again in some symptoms after the implants were removed. But then I still, kept saying, why is my stomach, why can't I get my gut right? I was much better. I mean, I was much more, I was able to, I think we traveled more that summer than we had in a really long time.
Which you would never be able to do. Oh my gosh.
Never. I gained a significant amount of weight. In fact, to do the reconstruction for the implants, they had to do fat grafting, which at 110 pounds would not have been possible. But I was like 135 at that point. So I had made some huge strides in my journey. But, there was still just some lingering stomach symptoms. And so that's when we went and discovered the cavitations and stuff. And we did that. And my SIBO made a night and day turnaround after the cavitations were removed.
And hormonally, we watched this change. And now after the cavitations, hormonally, what happened?
So hormonally, I was, I would say definitely my cycles were super consistent. My thyroid numbers came back testing, really well.
Yeah. I mean, all your autoimmune, I mean, even through the detox, getting rid of heavy metals, we saw the hormones changing, and your autoimmune tests were coming back. I mean, now all of those are normal. But something even more miraculous happened. I remember the email, and you can just kind of show the audience. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think somewhere in the past, 4 months or so, I sent you an email and I said, it was right after we had a conversation, and we were kind of, because I'm still, it's years, not months, right? So I'm still on this journey, and I'm still working to detox, and I love it. I work for my kids, I'm working on my kids.
Yeah, because you learned enough from me to do it with your kids, right? Yeah. I mean, that's my goal, is to teach you the process, because it's years, not months.
Exactly. So, and I enjoy feeling better. But we just had set a new protocol. We're going to do this, new thing. And I started having some symptoms, and I told my husband, I said, I think you need to go to the store and get a pregnancy test. And he's kind of looking at me wide-eyed, took a pregnancy test, and it was positive. So, and we were definitely not trying. And I should have mentioned too, my first pregnancy, they told me I would never get to be able to be pregnant without, the fertility medicine and stuff like that. So I was struggling to get pregnant with my first two. I had a miscarriage in there, had very difficult pregnancies.
Again, common for people who work in dental offices. So
yeah, lots of issues in my pregnancies, lots of complications getting pregnant, miscarriages, and then this pregnancy. It's been.
Stand up. That's where you're at. I want to make you do it. Look, there she is, right there. Yep, that's the first I saw that. So in the beginning, so it's awesome.
It's in this pregnancy, really, honestly, I don't want to jinx anything, but it's gone the best so far out of my three.
I mean, it's an expression of health. I mean, of course, all those things that we talked about in the beginning. They're, you have your brain back. I mean, there's so many. It's like, and I didn't even remember. Like I said, as I wrote them down, I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot, how sick you were. And remember when I saw you in New York, I actually saw you at Jerry's office, and I spoke to you over the phone, it was a virtual relationship. And then, Marilyn and I saw you and your husband. I was like, oh my gosh. It was like, you're like, oh, she's so cute. You were just different than what I thought. You were like bubbling with excitement because you just came out of the thing. So.
Well, and like I said, I finally was able to, we've traveled a lot.
Yeah.
We've done things that I would have never, ever been.
Well, you were like, we just walked, you walked for days around New York. You're like, Dr. Pompa, I would never be able to do this,
I probably cheated a little bit on my diet as well, but I was able to tolerate it more, better than I would have ever in the past. And so, yeah, it's a horrible place to have jaw surgery.
Yeah, it's true. Come on, man. I've done that so many times. So my wife, it's like, I'm in New York. It's like, all the good food. It's like, are you kidding?
Next time I go back, I will be.
Yeah, that's what I keep saying. It's like, I just want to go without having to see Jerry, except on a social level. But anyway, Jerry's the dentist, episode 210. But anyway, yeah, no, look, I thought the reason I wanted to have you on is because your story just tells how important it is that go upstream, because so many people watching this show, they're like you and I. I was you too, right? I was searching and seeking to get my health back. I was a health seeker. Mm-hmm. And, we look here, we look there. But how did I get my life back? How did you get your life back? And, hundreds and thousands of not just myself, but the doctors I train, how do they get their lives back? We get to the cause. Yeah. There's no other way. And I fear that functional medicine is becoming more popular because of the failures of standard allopathic medicine, just pushing more drugs. And there's a time and a place. So, the criticism's not too deep there. But with chronic conditions like that you had, that I had, and so many people watching this have, it's not the answer. But the problem is that they're going to functional medicine, that doctors are running a lot of expensive tests and putting people on a lot of supplements. And the problem, there's nothing wrong with supplements, except that you have to get upstream to the cause. That was the difference in your case, right? Is that you'd still be sick with all the same issues if we didn't dig, for these causative factors. Yeah,
we had to go deep and just keep peeling that onion back. And with every layer that we peeled back, I kept getting more and more results. So it definitely, I am forever grateful, because I would have, I would not be sitting here. I would not be having another baby.
That's awesome. And I was a part of it too. I was like, gosh, your story just gives, people so much hope, because again, you went through so much, and now you just express health. So.
Yeah. Well, and I had, when I started this, spiral downward, I had a 3-month-old little boy. And so it was, it's been a very difficult journey. 2 little rambunctious kids and feeling like that. And, but now he's 3, going on 3.5, and I'm able to apply, I'm thankful. I'm so thankful for it, because I'm a totally different person now than I was, and look at life differently. But I'm able to look at my kids and go, okay, let's, because, we all know that they get their mother's gut. And I knew it was only a matter of time before they started expressing that. And they have, and so I've been able to work them through little protocols and stuff that are, manageable for their body size. But my 3.5-year-old, the one that was a baby when I was sick, he didn't talk, and he didn't talk. Not even hardly mama or dada until, over 2. He was over 2 before, and everybody was concerned. So at that point I kind of started, because at that point it was far enough into my journey where I started, feeling confident enough to detox him. And so I started detoxing him. And after every single detox I did, more and more started coming out of him, as far as, he's, like I said, he's 3 and 3 months, and he can recite the United States in alphabetical order. It's night and day. It's night and day.
And that makes me feel so good right there, because, I say this to everybody that I coach. Look, I'm not going to treat you. I'm going to teach you the process, and because it is years, not months. And if you learn the process, therein lies the power. Doctors are treating people with these chronic conditions. You don't need treated. It's a failure. Yeah. You have to be taught the process, and to hear how that, and this is the way it works, to hear how that went down into your kids and the family. It's just, man, it's a different paradigm of, of what medicine is doing right now, even alternative, honestly. I want to do something different. Ashley, I'm going to bring Ashley on, who starts the show and then sits silently. But I feel like I want Ashley to, maybe she has some questions she wants to ask you, because I feel like if I were the person sitting out there, gosh, what would I want to ask, and while I have you, Ashley, what are some questions that you would ask? I mean, you're the average lay person out there, what would you ask?
It is so fascinating, because I speak to so many women who are dealing with so many hormonal issues, and they really just don't know where to begin. So I guess my first question would be, like, what would be the first thing you would tell somebody to do if it's a female who just loses her period? I guess that would be a start. Like, that would be a symptom. Their periods just are irregular, or they can't get pregnant. Where do you think the first place they should look would be?
I definitely think you got to look upstream, like we've said. And so those major things would be hidden infections. Doctor, would you say hidden infections, mercury, so metals, heavy metals, any kind of heavy metal. Mold would be another one.
Yep.
Or a lot of times too, like parasites.
Tell some of your parasite stories very quickly, because we had some drama there.
Yeah.
but by the way, and again, this is what alternative medicine, they treat just the parasites. When I taught you, parasites are just a downstream, just like Candida effect. There's something upstream allowing the parasites. We want to kill the parasites, but if that's the end of our treatment, we're dead in the water, because you did a lot of parasite treatments.
No, I did a lot of parasite treatments. I had gotten sick in Mexico between my SIBO time, where I took that antibiotic, and when I was in dental school, or freshly graduating from dental. And so I know you fill your bucket up so full, and then all of a sudden it allows for those opportunistic infections to take hold. And so that's where you'll hear a lot of people, especially in the natural side, saying, oh, I have X, Y, and Z, as far as these little opportunistic infections, H. pylori, or parasites. But until you deal with that upstream, you're not going to take care of the downstream, the parasites. Those things that are just able to live and survive because your immune system is so compromised.
Yeah.
So definitely looking at those big guys up, implants with women is so common. So looking upstream and finding those things, I think it's got to be the first place to start. And I'm a perfect example, because we were only able to get so far in my treatment until, we kind of scratched our heads and said, what else are we missing? And so we had to keep going, back to the drawing board and finding those things that, that we were missing. And so.
Yeah, definitely. Also working with somebody who understands that there might be things that are missing as well. I'm sure it could be really frustrating when people work with practitioners who do a lot of testing and they say, you're fine, there's nothing there. So
yeah, no doubt. And it's very hard when you have friends and colleagues, going through struggles, and you see it, and you don't know all the answers, but there's so much more to it. And it is such it's an exhausting, long, drawn out process to truly get your health back. Like he said, I had to do just about everything, pull out, every stop that I possibly could to make it happen. But, when you're really sick and miserable, you will do just about anything.
Tamara, we tell the story, and we make it sound like, oh, it was so easy. There was so much emotion along the way. I could even feel it from your husband when I met him actually in person in Jerry's office. He was just so elated. Like, we're able to walk around New York, Dr. Pompa, is like that type of emotion, because you realize what you've been through.
Yeah.
But I remember, I think you were telling me an emotional story. Like, okay, you were underweight, right? And of course, you eat this like perfect diet, and your friends were like thinking you were just like this anorexic, like eating like too overboard, right? And people just don't understand. When I was sick, I hid it from people, because people just don't get it, man. It's a sad thing.
Yeah. It's definitely a lot easier being on the other side of it and having those conversations now. But when you're in it, especially in the very beginning, when you're so confused and you have no direction. It's the most depressing thing. And then you have people tell you you're depressed and that's your problem.
Oh, I had that. Yep.
Of course I'm depressed because I feel like this and nobody seems to understand. Nobody can relate, and especially your friends, God really blessed me. I guess I should definitely mention God in this. I'm 100% confident he's who led me to you and he's who sustained me throughout this entire process. But I've had some amazing support, my friends, through this. And, one gal who was a friend of my mom's, when I was down at the Mayo Clinic early in my journey, she reached out to me, and she's just a prayer warrior. And she has messaged me to this day, multiple times a day for 3.5 years, just inspirational text messages.
That's awesome.
And, so it's people like that I don't think they realize how big of an impact, they really truly make in somebody's life when they're going through something this big. But forever grateful for.
Yeah, my wife and I pray all the time for God to send us the ones we can help and the ones he wants us to help. And I thank God for those opportunities, honestly. And, if I didn't get sick, I wouldn't have been able to help you. How many people are you impacting, even just with this show?
Yeah.
And so people watching, from pain to purpose. Honestly, it's, I do these shows just because there's hope. God will use it. God will use your battles, the hard stuff in our life to make us better in so many ways. And you just testified to that today. So, Tamara, it takes a lot of guts to come on the show. And I always make light of it. That's just a conversation, but it still takes a lot of guts. So thank you for being on the show, honestly, and sharing your story. It's hard.
It's easy to talk about because I am so passionate about it now. And I know so many people, in this journey, and after seeing, me kind of get to the other side of it, so many people have reached out to me, and want that help. So no doubt, I know that in my future, I will, try to be a platform where I can help more people.
Yeah. Honestly, if you had a platform right now to say, give people your website or your whatever, you're welcome to do that or not. I don't want to inundate you, but you need to have some type of blog or something. People want to reach out to you. I'm sure they want to talk to you.
Yeah, no, I definitely, it was on the plan, and then God obviously had a different plan. He said, you're going to have another baby first.
It's true. Yeah, you got to have your baby first.
Detox, I guess. I don't know. But,
well, look, you're called to it. You're a warrior in it. I can't wait to see what God does in your life with it. I'm sure you'll end up at my seminars one day, like so many people that I've helped have been. Right, Ash?
You have to make it fun.
They're coming in. Now we're certifying the public in some things. And, just there's so many warriors like you and, people that just want to share their story. And from not just myself, but the doctors I train who have been helped that, they want to do this from pain to purpose and they want to help people now. So thanks again, Tamara. And I know that we're going to see you in the future. So thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey, I want to tell you about one of our sponsors, Cyto Detox. Look, podcasts cost money. There's a lot of production going around this, but we are grateful to have Cyto Detox as one of the sponsors. It's so easy for me to talk about the product because myself and my family use it constantly as we practice what I preach. For over 15 years, I've talked about and taught doctors and the public about cellular detox. And I'll tell you, Cyto was a breakthrough. Cyto was a breakthrough for us. And it's changed so many lives. So we're grateful that they sponsor Cellular Healing TV. It makes sense, doesn't it? They should.
If you're listening to this podcast and want to access the amazing Cyto Detox product Dr. Pompa just mentioned, please visit detoxoffer.com. Again, that's detoxoffer.com. Well, that's it for this week. The materials and content within this podcast are intended as general information only and are not to be considered a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. If you would like to purchase some of the supplements mentioned on this show, please visit the site as seen on CHTV.com and use the code CHTV15 for 15% off. Again, that's as seen on CHTV.com. Use the code CHTV15 for 15% off. And as always, thanks for listening.